All right, so we are on the bottom of page 577 in the chapter, and they talk about the array class. Now, much of the stuff, if you look on the screen here, this is the bottom of page 577 and the top of 578. We didn't talk about this stuff yesterday. I showed you how to use arrays programmatically. Much of the stuff that's in here tells you how to use arrays, but how to use them kind of like you use the string class to do manipulation of text. So there's things like push and pop and reverse and shift and slice on the next page. We did look at sort, but that's really on here on this list. I think that's the only one we even looked at. All right. When you use all those, and you saw this yesterday, you use the dot syntax. So the name of the array dot whatever you want to do to the array. All right. So they go through some examples on how you will do certain things. As an example, if we look on page 579 here. All right. So we want to look through here, and we want to be able to grab states from what are in here. All right. You'll notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different states. All right, hopefully everybody can see that. There's 10 states here. So we're telling it to use the slice method. So it's saying starting with state 0, give me the next 5. So that should, if it worked right, give us Alaska, Texas, California, Montana, and New Mexico. But it should leave out Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Oregon, and Wyoming. Does that make sense? You will be expected on your Chapter 8 test in a couple weeks to be able to do this kind of manipulation. I will let you know the day before you take that test exactly what the format will be. All right, but since I haven't written it yet, I can't tell you what the format's like. And they talk in here about using the slice, and slice is at the top of the page here. It says to extract elements from an array, you can use the slice. It's like you got a pie, and you're taking pieces of the pie out. It's the same kind of an idea. Manipulating elements starts on page 580. You'll notice that there is a shift method and unshift method. Please look up on the screen here, because shift and unshift notice that shift removes the first element, unshift adds to the beginning of an array. Did you hear that? The thing is, it's always at the front of the array. When you use push and pop, it always goes to the end of the array. So they do the same kind of thing, but it's where do you want to add them? Do you want to add them to the beginning, or do you want to add them to the end? Most of the time, this is a generalization, but I think most of the time you'll use push and pop because you want to push something to the end of an array. All right? But as always, it depends. So again, pop removes the last element, push adds one to the end. All right? And again, those names are fairly common, push and pop, in other programming languages, just so you're aware of that. You may not care, but at least you've heard it. All right. If you want to add or remove elements in an array, you use the splice method. Please look up on the screen. This is the important part about arrays. Previously, we talked about slice. This is splice. Why am I telling you that? Because slice does not change the array. Splice with an L does actually change the array. Because what splice allows you to do, if you want to, you can add stuff anywhere you want to into the array, or remove things from anywhere you want to within the array. Did you hear that? All right. The book doesn't make as big a thing out of this probably as it should. But if you want to add or remove elements within an array, and that's a permanent change. So slice is like give me a copy. Splice means actually physically change it. So again, starting on 583, you're going to go through, and with this Golden Rocks Park, you're going to be going through and doing some array stuff on 583, 584, 585, and 586. And if we go to the bottom of page 586 here, the author talks about sorting arrays. This is real simple. We're not talking about what we did yesterday. We sorted numeric arrays yesterday. This is sorting string arrays. So please look up on the screen. Again, this is taken from page 587. You see how simple it is? If you're sorting string arrays, it's the name of the array dot sort. All right? That's it. Now, there's not a reverse sort. Some languages have like an R sort, which means sort them in reverse. So if I've got this array, if I get Jeff, Sandy, Taylor, Chloe, and Mackenzie. That's the people in my family. I want to put the dog in there. They named the dog. I didn't. The dog's named Olive. All right, so, but if we've got these 6 and I run sort on it, what's it going to do? Chloe, take off that one. Next is what I think is me. Then Mackenzie. Then Olive. Then Sandy. And then Taylor. I'm asking you, does that make sense to everybody? So if I have an array named names and I say names.sort, that's going to take this and convert it into this. Make sense? Then after I do this, if I go names.reverse, then it's going to go and make it Taylor, Sandy, Olive, Mackenzie, Jeff, Chloe. So there is no reverse sort. You have to run sort and then reverse it. You don't want to run reverse first and then sort it. It'd be wrong. You sort it first and then you run reverse on it. Again, it is explained in the book on pages 586 and 587. Before we looked at that concat. You can use concat on arrays if you want to do that. In other words, you can use concat to combine 2 arrays together. That's on the bottom of page 587, and it goes on to page 588. Now, one important thing to realize about arrays in JavaScript, I said this before, but now whether you think you are or not, you are now getting to a level of sophistication that you should understand what I'm about to say. In all the other languages that you're going to learn in this program, in C# and in ASP.NET and in Java, when you make an array, they all have to be the same kind of variable. They all have to be an array of integers or an array of booleans or an array of strings, but you can't mix things. In JavaScript, you can. That's a really important thing to realize. So they talk here about sometimes you want to be able to do something with an array, but you don't have the ability to do it. Okay? In other words, again, please look up on the screen here. I've got all this stuff I can do with arrays. I've got these 25 things. And I want to do something with an array, but it's not in these 25 things. And I don't want to write my own thing. But I realize, wow, there is something that I want to do that's in strings. So what you can do is you can convert an array to a string. So you can grab all the elements in an array, glue them together, and turn them into a string. Or you can grab all the elements in a string, and you can kind of blow them up, all right? And you can use those, turn them into an array. Does that make sense? Somebody there? Okay. But does the concept make sense? All right. And to tell you the truth, I mean, when you want to take a string and break it into an array, Okay? That's actually in the PHP programming language, that's called an explode. Because that's what you're doing. You're taking one thing and exploding it into a bunch of things. They don't call it that here, but if we take a look, you can use the first one that they mention here on page 588 is using split. The split method of the string class splits a string into an array. I gave you an example of that. All right? I use for a lot of these examples on the thing I just sent you. If you ever heard that sentence, now is the time for all good people to come to the aid of their party. I take that sentence and I run the split method on it and I break it into an array where each word is an element in the array. So now is the time for etc. All right. Turning up to page 590, if you want to basically go in the other direction, there's a join. All right, it's in there someplace. So I guess it starts on the bottom of the previous page. So again, whereas split breaks them apart, join brings them together. Okay? Why would you use join? If I had 3 different strings, one string with your first name, one string with your middle name, and one string with your last name, I could take those 3 strings, join them together into one string, and call it full name, as an example. You do some more work with the Golden Rock Park on page 591 and 592. All right. Speaking of which, turning up to page 592 and looking at the bottom of the page, converting between strings and JSON. Many computer programming languages work really well with JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation. It sounds a lot more difficult than it is, and I believe if you go out, I don't know if it's json.com or json.org, I don't remember. Okay, it's not that one. If you go out to json.org, another one of these things, really ugly website. But if you go out to json.org and you go down to the bottom, JavaScript, how to use JSON. All right, so if you want to go out there and you want to learn more about it, there's not that much you're going to have to do with that in this class. I would not put that on a test. But you should be exposed to that. If you're ever to go out for an interview for a job or an internship or whatever, they might say, Evan, what do you know about JSON? And you might say, they don't want you, not to be funny, they don't want you to say, oh, he's a really nice guy. No. You might even say JSON or JSON, and then you say, well, that's JavaScript object notation, even if you give them a sentence or two. All right. But as it says there, rather than just converting between strings and arrays, you can also convert between strings and JSON. As it says, it's commonly used to send data from an application to a server or from a server to an application. So when you're sending stuff from machine to machine and you want to make sure it understands the format, quite often what you're going to use is something like JSON. If you don't use JSON, you'll typically be using XML, which is the extensible markup language. All right. Here's the nice thing about it. JSON only has 2 objects, parse and stringify. That's it. Parse converts a string to an object. Stringify converts an object to a string. That's it. That's all there is. That's pretty darn powerful, though, in what you can do with it. All right. And they mention here, to convert an object to a string, you use stringify. And they will show some examples. Since we did not go over Chapter 7 in here, which was on object orientation, I showed you something that looked like this yesterday when we looked at that game. But I don't think it's fair to test you on it. So since we're not going over Chapter 7, there'll be nothing about JSON on your tests. Other than on the written test, I think there's a question or two. We'll go over that in just a minute. So that's converting between strings and JSON. And to convert between a string and an object, there's parse. That's shown on the bottom of 594. And there's an example of it on 595. And then on 595 and on 596, you'll actually implement that for this goldenrod park. All right? So let's do this. If you all would please turn to page 601 in your book. Page 601. I have not done this. I usually try to before class, but I didn't. No excuse. I didn't. Whoops. On 601, let's look at the questions here. Number 1, extracting characters or substrings from a larger string. Anybody remember what number 1 was? A, parsing. Very good. Number 2, what property of the string class returns the number of characters in the string? Come on, I mean, yeah, that should just make sense. Number 3, this question is wrong, just so you know. It shouldn't say regular expression patterns in JavaScript must begin and end with which characters. It's normally begin and end with what characters. Typically, whatever. And you'll find it 99.99% of the time, but it's not mandatory that you do that. And it is B, the forward slashes. Number 4, which of the following is a method for the regular expression class for working with regular expressions? The answer is C, test. Number 5, anybody remember? What meta character represents any character? Which one of those would you guess? It's not A or B. A is the end of the line. B is the beginning of the line. D, the period is the global meta character. Number 6, we didn't go through this, but which one means exclude? Believe it or not, it's C. So if you use C, in one way, if you use C in a regular expression, it means beginning of the line. In another way, it means exclude, or don't use this. It's a little confusing, but you have to do it based on the context. Number 7, a pattern that matches the beginning or the end of the line, it's called an anchor. Number 8, to match any meta character with a literal value, you must, and typically you enclose it within brackets. A. I believe that's right. Number 9, which of the following expressions would return false? You know what? I hate questions like that. Just forget that question. All right. Number 10, which of the following quantifiers means repeat at least 2 times? The answer is actually B. That means a minimum of 2 and there's no maximum. Does that make sense? It's got the number, comma, but note that the number before the comma is the beginning. The number at the end, since there isn't one, means there is no end. Which do you use to create a sub-expression? Oh, that's a good one. I don't remember. So let's see if we can find it. I should know that, but having a brain fart. Should be on 566, according to this. Well, looks like it's within forward slashes, which would make it B, or number 11. Which of the following expressions represents numeric characters? Everybody remember number 12? C. 13. Which removes the last element from the end of the array? The answer is A. It pops it off. Number 14, what array would result from the following statement? Well, it says start it at location 1. We're splicing here, so we're going to replace silver with gray. So it should be white, gray, silver, blue, I believe. No, should be white, gray, blue. It's either C or D. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm sorry, it's either B or C. And now that I'm looking at it, I think it's going to be B. All right. Number 15, the JSON parse method converts a value to which data type? I believe that's right. 16, after running the statements that are shown here, what is the value of the media variable and why? Well, it should be DVD all in uppercase, correct? So big D, big V, big D, because we first set it and then we changed the uppercase on it. Number 17, what's the difference between the index of and the last index of? Index of starts the search at the beginning. Last index of starts the search at the end. All right. 18, same kind of thing. Why negative? All right. 19, what does the expression A less than A evaluate to? Anybody want to guess what that is? Number 18? I'm sorry, number 19? Believe it or not, little a is greater than big A because it's where it lines up in the ASCII or Unicode character set. So if you look right here, so I'm just going to put in ASCII and giving you an ASCII table here. And when we look here, I'll blow this up a bit, but when we look and we find lowercase a is got an ASCII value of 97, uppercase a has got an ASCII value of 65. They did the capital letters before they did the lowercase. I don't know why. Somebody made that decision. Number 20, what's the difference between the shift and unshift? All right, it's do you add something to the beginning of the array or do you remove something from the beginning of the array? All right. So let's do this. Again, I sent you an email